We're back in the front, and as you can see, the front is huge. After the fall of India, we'll be fighting through entire Soviet Union south and nearly entire Soviet Union west. There's not that many kilometers now, considering how much we already have taken here, and this advance is going just fine. Oh, look at that intelligence network. The matter of intelligence agencies has been discussed intensely during the week. Most members of our government are of the opinion that the scope and power of our existing agencies should be vastly increased. It has also been proposed that we put considerable focus on the establishment of new networks in most of the countries to ensure that they view us as favorably as they ought to. Let's further promote a bunch of officers, and let's not expand our networks any further. I believe that our networks are just fine where they currently are. Here we are seeing a much greater increase in activity on the Stalingrad front. It looks like even the Soviets will have to divert additional forces here to fight Axis troops. Hopefully we will be able to save these troops trapped in Crimea. Also, advance is taking place on Saudi Arabia front. However, supply here may be an issue, but we are holding firm. In here, we are very close in defeating the British. So that's North Africa, and most of British divisions have already been shattered, undoubtedly, or secretly escaped. They may have secretly escaped. In any case, these commanders will either shoot themselves, die in battle, or end up being captured. We undoubtedly have already many of these. South Africa, Italians undoubtedly are going to advance. Here, this Far East front, the Soviets are manning front line very successfully. After these Middle East nations fall, we will be able to further advance. Now, finally, we have successfully connected our Crimean pocket with Stalingrad front, and it seems that everybody is advancing forward. Here we see Latvians fighting on Stalingrad front also. This is huge. Stalingrad is maybe a couple of 100 kilometers away. The Soviets, on the other hand, are closing in on the Romanian border, as they normally do, but we tend to simply defeat them. However, surprisingly enough, more and more forces are being sent to the south. Stalingrad front, undoubtedly a very important position for us, where we can gain considerable amounts of land, and troops are being supplied very well there. Another major defeat. Well, we had plenty of these. Also, we had plenty of victories. Let's wait further. Look at that. They're allowing us to just enter this territory nearly unopposed. That's good. That's very good to see. And once again, we're advancing from Romanian border now. We have crushed them here. The very heavy tank divisions are starting to show up here, and we're pushing them back. We don't see massive Soviet troop movements to cover Stalingrad front. We are at the outskirts of Stalingrad itself, a famous settlement, and we will enter it. Here it's ours. Stalingrad itself is ours. That's a great achievement, without a doubt. We don't know much about this, about the Soviets. Let's increase our espionage efforts by a bit, and we'll use this to learn more about the Soviets at this very moment in time. So their economy is still huge. They don't have nearly as much leadership, but they are expanding infrastructure in mass, building many radars and air bases, all kinds of installations. They are still very united, however they are suffering descent. They don't have fuel or oil, so that's that. However, the Stalingrad front has broken for the Soviets. We are marching through into their territory here. This is a truly great news for us. Very beautiful to see that. However, on the Eastern Front, in Europe side, still the fighting is very much equal, or at least the generals are doing the same thing as they're doing for the last 6 years. See, this division right here moved a bit too much inland. This is a quite weak division consisting only of 2 brigades. That's most likely the very minimum. In any case, we're advancing here very effectively. On the other hand, this Far East front is being manned by the Soviets, but not nearly to an extent that it has to be. For example, here our troops can just simply march inland, and the Japanese are able to defeat the Soviets here very effectively. They are taking vast lands from the Soviets here, even in the Arctic, which is good. This will extend, and as you can see, is extending the Soviets even further. That's good for us. India will surely be Japanese held in a short period of time. They just need to walk through it. There is a British army here, but I would say that's a defeated British army. We're soon going to start surrounding the Soviets here. A very, very interesting situation is developing. Very, very interesting indeed. Now without Stalingrad, there are 46% of surrender. Without such cities as Stalingrad, Leningrad, Moscow is still far away. Still far away from both fronts. There is a lot to do, a lot of work to do before we actually reach it. Here we can take a look at some of the fighting that's taking place here. It looks like Soviets are dominating with their tank divisions. It seems that they are winning here. But look at that, we're sending more and more troops on the Leningrad, on the Stalingrad front. This is huge. It looks like we would prefer to weaken our eastern front to strengthen Stalingrad front very, very much. On the other hand, here the British are stopping our advance quite effectively. North Africa has been completely taken besides a province, and here the front looks the way we want to see it. Everything seems to be going according to plan. See? Now the Soviets are certainly massing troops here on the Stalingrad front, diverting troops from the eastern front, and this should allow us to advance at any point. It's 1949 August. What will happen next? I think that the Soviets are very, very strong here, very, very powerful. It's not an easy walk in the park, but for as long as they're not manning this front, it's good for us. The only problems that could happen here is we're gonna move too far east and not really gain much out of it. We wouldn't want to be Japanese fighting somewhere here, but the Japanese do have the numbers to fight here, and they're doing this very, very effectively indeed. Very, very, very effective. Wow, look at that empire. It's unbelievably huge. Only these forces could link up, we would be able to squeeze the Soviets even further. Now it looks like Soviet High Command has certainly decided to man this Stalingrad front, because we're seeing more and more divisions here. Now what's the worst that could happen to the Soviets is if we would start to squeeze this area from two sides, obviously. That would be very, very bad for the Soviets. They may even could be starting to lose supply. Let's see how many more troops are coming in. Not that many, but there are still quite a few armies that need to reach Stalingrad front outskirts, so that we could start advancing forward. So what may happen, these forces could link up here. In North Africa, everything seems to be sorted. In South Africa, the Italians just are not kind of able to make that last push. They would be needed elsewhere, undoubtedly. Here we see the Americans advancing on the Spanish territories. But with that North African held by the British, the Americans will have a very hard time fighting Spanish divisions that can certainly be allocated there. So that's a wider front. As you can see, this is where the front would probably be anyway. And this is what we have achieved, Stalingrad front. And it's huge, it's well supplied, and the Soviets are very reluctant to throw in countless armies here. However, they have never brought that many troops as there are currently here, and they're consistently moving. You see, the Soviets have way more tanks than we do. A lot more tanks than we do. So, only with anti-tank weapons we can do much about this. We can look at the region. Most of these were plains. Now we're moving into deserts. And more plains. So on the plains, it looks like we can fight very effectively. We went through the mountains in here, so that's probably why it was so slow. But here we are making a very considerable advance without stop. Now look at that. That's where the Soviets most likely don't want to be. They don't want to fight on both sides. And they'll soon be fighting on both sides here. And that's probably what we want. We want them to consistently divert forces from one side to the other, without really doing much about it on either front. The only problem here for us, obviously, is the overextension. The Soviets have so many tanks, they even can overextend. We can't. I personally still rely very heavily on these Japanese divisions in India. However, the Japanese may just send their own division somewhere else. There are many theaters for them to fight in, like Australia, or the Soviets. However, if they could only join us here, things would be perfect. In case it could be that we are strong enough to defeat the Soviets right here at the heart of Eastern Front. Spanish state and force conquer on Liberia. Okay, that's good. Nationalists are gaining ground also. This is huge. Most of the troops have left Crimea. However, Soviets will bring in troops to make sure Crimea stays Soviet. Our Stalingrad front is filled with troops, as you can see. However, these garrisons can't really conduct good operations, and the Soviets have tanks all over, but these tanks lack fuel, so they have to divert the fuel very carefully. So it could be that the Soviets built so many tanks that they just simply use their fuel